There's a moment in every man's life when he realizes that no matter how much he does for a woman, no matter how available he is, no matter how nice he tries to be, she still doesn't see him the way he wants to be seen. And here's the harsh truth. Most men don't even know that they are the reason she doesn't respect them, that she doesn't crave them, that she doesn't feel that magnetic desire that overrides logic and makes her obsessed. But it's not your fault. Society trains you to behave in ways that destroy your value in a woman's eyes. It tells you to be accommodating, emotionally available too soon, and always ready to please. The problem is that conditioning teaches you to trade your masculinity for approval, and what women crave, what they really crave deep down, is a man who doesn't trade anything, especially not his power. So today, we're going to cut straight through the noise and show you exactly what you need to stop doing if you want a woman to see you differently forever. And I don't mean just see you. I mean respect you, feel pulled to you, think about you when she's alone at night, and see you as the man she doesn't want to lose. Not because you begged for her attention, but because you finally learned how to own it. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed that the guys who women obsess over aren't necessarily the richest, the best looking, or even the funniest? In fact, some of them barely talk. They just stand there, confident, present, unbothered. There's a calm, silent gravity around them. You feel it, and so does she. That's not an accident. Those men radiate something you can't fake. And that's what this video is about. We're going to dismantle the old patterns that are silently killing your attraction and rebuild something more powerful, starting with one crucial truth. The moment you stop chasing, you start attracting. Let me break that down. Most men operate from fear. Fear of losing her, fear of not being enough, fear of being alone. And from that fear, they overcompensate. They text too much. They double text. They apologize for everything. They over-explain. They try to convince. They compliment too early, too often. They say, "I just want to make you happy," instead of, "This is what I want." Each of these behaviors seems innocent, even kind. But to her subconscious, they all scream the same thing. He doesn't see himself as the prize. And if you don't see yourself as the prize, why the hell would she? This isn't about being rude. It's not about playing games. It's about breaking the habit of putting her on a pedestal. Neil Strauss talked about this in The Game. The idea that seduction isn't about trying to impress her. It's about making her feel something. And a woman doesn't feel desire for a man who acts like he's beneath her. Desire lives in tension, in mystery, in challenge, not in comfort and certainty. If you always answer right away, if you always say yes, if you're always there, always accessible, you become predictable. Predictability is safety, and safety is the opposite of attraction. It's the opposite of excitement. It's the opposite of seduction. That's why you must stop acting like you're afraid to lose her. Now you might say, "But I'm just being honest with my feelings." And that's noble. But here's the thing. Women aren't attracted to emotional exposure too soon. Not because they're heartless, but because early emotional overexposure from a man signals desperation, not depth. What they're drawn to is a man who feels deeply, but doesn't need to unload it all at once. A man who has layers, who reveals slowly, deliberately, when he chooses. That builds tension, that creates mystery. Here's another one. Stop trying to prove your worth through words. Most guys think if they just say the right thing, she'll suddenly fall for them. They become verbal performers. They rehearse texts. They send paragraphs explaining how much they care. But words, on their own, are cheap. Words only carry weight when they're backed by masculine energy and self-respect. If your words are dripping with insecurity, they don't seduce, they repel. A woman feels your value before she hears it. Let me give you a real example. One of the guys I coached, let's call him Leo, was the classic nice guy. Always complimenting, always chasing, always making himself available. And no matter how hard he tried, the girl he liked kept pulling away. She said, "You're sweet, but I just don't feel that spark." That spark? It wasn't missing because he was too nice. It was missing because he wasn't being real. He was being safe, and safety is predictable. It doesn't challenge. It doesn't polarize. It doesn't trigger attraction. So I told him, stop texting her every day. Don't ask her how she feels about you. Let her miss you, let her wonder. He hated it, said it felt manipulative, but he did it anyway. And you know what happened? 3 days later, she texted first. "Hey, are you okay?" That's not just a check-in. That's the beginning of emotional curiosity. It's when she starts chasing. This is the key most men ignore. When you stop flooding her with your energy, she starts to wonder where it went. And when a woman wonders, she invests. Emotionally, psychologically, subconsciously. There's something most men never realize until it's too late. Attraction is not something you get from a woman. It's something you generate within yourself. And ironically, it gets destroyed the moment your behavior becomes reactive to her. Think about that. The moment your energy starts revolving around her moods, her availability, her validation, you give away your frame. And a man without a solid frame is invisible in the realm of seduction. Here's what that means in real life. If she takes hours to reply and you instantly double text, you're reacting. If she pulls back and you chase harder, you're reacting. If she shows disinterest and you start negotiating for attention, you're reacting. And each reaction tells her subconscious mind, "I'm unsure of my value. I need you to reflect it back to me." But women aren't attracted to uncertainty in men. They're magnetized by emotional sovereignty. The man who stays grounded no matter what she does. The man who is centered in his mission, not swayed by her silence or her mood swings. That's the man who holds psychological weight. That's the man who becomes unforgettable. Robert Greene, in The Art of Seduction, calls this the charismatic seducer, the man whose presence carries power, not because he demands it, but because he never chases it. That type of man doesn't seek attention. He creates intrigue by doing the opposite of what every other guy is doing. So how do you stop reacting and start leading? It begins with detachment. Detachment doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means your sense of self isn't on the line every time she responds or doesn't. It means you can enjoy her company without needing her to validate your identity. And that energy, that freedom, is intoxicating to a woman. Let's flip the dynamic for a moment. Have you ever noticed how the women who don't chase you suddenly become more attractive in your mind? It's not because they're hotter or smarter. It's because their attention isn't guaranteed. Your mind starts to wonder, to fantasize, to pursue. The same psychology works in reverse. If your energy is always available, there's no mystery, no value, no emotional tension. Mystery is what makes you unforgettable. That's why some guys hook up with a woman once and she can't stop thinking about them, while others give her everything, and she forgets them the next week. It's not about how good you are in bed, how expensive your dinner was, or how polite you were. It's about how you made her feel, and specifically whether she felt like she was earning your attention, or if it was just handed to her without effort. Because here's a hard truth most men don't want to face. When something is too easy, it loses its value. That applies to objects, and it applies to you. If your presence requires nothing from her, no investment, no curiosity, no chase, then her subconscious concludes you're not worth much. Not because you aren't, but because your behavior told her so. Now let's go deeper. Every woman has what's called an emotional threshold, a line that, once crossed, triggers attraction beyond logic. But that line doesn't get crossed by proving how much you like her. It gets crossed when you disrupt her pattern, when you behave in a way she didn't expect. Most men fall into a rhythm with a woman too fast. They reply fast, they act predictable, they become routine. And routine is the enemy of seduction. To change how she sees you, you must change how you show up. For example, next time you're on a date and she tests you, maybe by teasing you, going cold, or playing hard to get, don't try to win her back. Don't overcompensate. Instead, laugh it off, lean back. Let her feel that your world doesn't collapse when she pulls away. That right there is power. That's how you shift the dynamic from pursuit to polarity. The most seductive men aren't trying to impress. They're expressing who they are. They're grounded. They're playful but unapologetic. They don't chase. They invite. And if she doesn't accept, they're totally fine with it, because their identity isn't tied to her reaction. This is why women become obsessed with men they can't fully figure out. If every thought, emotion, and intention is laid out in the first week, there's nothing left for her to explore. Curiosity dies. But when you're composed, slightly unpredictable, and confidently selective. You create emotional dissonance in her mind. She starts thinking about you when you're not around. She starts wondering what you're doing, who you're with, what you're feeling. And now you've flipped the script. Now she's emotionally investing before physical intimacy. That's the goal. Because when a woman is emotionally invested before things get physical, she starts attaching value to you at a deeper level. That's the kind of connection that lasts longer. That's what separates men she forgets from men she remembers. And again, this all starts when you stop the behaviors that are rooted in fear. Fear of losing her, fear of rejection, fear of being alone. Those fears make you act out of alignment with who you really are. And here's the truth. Every time you betray your core to try and keep a woman interested, you teach her that you can't lead yourself. So why would she want to follow your lead? This is where real attraction is born. Not from pretending to be alpha, not from memorizing lines, but from becoming a man who doesn't abandon himself to gain approval. The man who knows that the more he needs her validation, the less he'll ever get it. Because once she senses that you don't need her approval to feel like a man, she starts craving your approval to feel like a woman. And that's when everything shifts. Let me tell you something most men never stop to think about. Women don't fall in love with you based on logic. They fall in love based on how they perceive themselves when they're around you. That's the real secret. If a woman feels more desired, more feminine, more alive in your presence, she will naturally start to associate you with those feelings. And that emotional association is far more powerful than any compliment, gift, or good guy behavior. But if instead, she feels like she's in control of the dynamic, like she's being pursued, chased, or pedestalized, she won't value it. Not because she's manipulative or superficial, but because it doesn't activate her instincts. And what we're talking about here, real primal attraction, is instinctual. This is why so many guys who act perfect still get left for the guy who barely tries. Because while the perfect guy is focused on pleasing, the other guy is just being. He's in his frame, he's not trying to win her over, he's simply enjoying her presence while staying rooted in his own world. And that's what makes her want to be part of it. Now let's talk about something even deeper. Energy. You've probably heard that term thrown around, feminine energy, masculine energy. But here's what it actually means in practice. Masculine energy is direction, stillness, purpose. Feminine energy is movement, emotion, chaos, flow. When a man is anchored in his masculine, it allows a woman to relax into her feminine. That contrast creates polarity, and polarity is where seduction lives. But what happens when a man becomes emotionally chaotic? When he over-explains, over-pursues, over-apologizes, overthinks, he steps out of the masculine. He becomes unstable, uncertain, emotionally noisy. And suddenly, the polarity is gone. There's no tension, no contrast, no seduction. So what do? You embrace stillness. You train yourself to withstand her emotional waves without collapsing. When she tests you, stay calm. When she's hot and cold, remain consistent. When she withdraws, you don't chase, you observe. This doesn't mean being passive. It means responding from strength, not reacting from fear. You see, the moment she senses that you're centered, she subconsciously feels safe. And safety, paradoxically, is what allows her to let go, to be feminine, to become emotionally expressive, sensual, vulnerable. But only when she feels the presence of a man who won't lose himself in her emotional weather. That's when she starts to trust you, not because you said the right words, but because your presence communicates certainty. And certainty to a woman is irresistible. But this kind of certainty requires something most men avoid: solitude. You want her to see you differently? Then start spending time alone with your thoughts. Most guys run from silence because they're uncomfortable facing who they really are. But a man who is unafraid of his own mind becomes magnetic. Why? Because when you know yourself, you no longer need her to define you. That's when everything changes. She stops seeing you as another guy trying to win her affection, and starts seeing you as the standard. The man other men imitate but can't replicate. The man she compares everyone else to, even months after you've walked away. Because while other men were trying to be liked, you were building presence. You weren't seeking validation. You were radiating purpose. And that is what women truly desire. Even if they can't articulate it, they feel it. It shows in how you walk, how you pause, how you look at her. Not with hunger, not with need, but with grounded curiosity, with calm confidence, with the unspoken message. You're interesting, but I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to enjoy you. And now we come to another layer: selective attention. This is a trait that separates the high-value man from the rest. You don't give your full attention just because she's beautiful. That's what every guy does. You give it because she's earned it. And when she senses that your attention is selective, it raises her perception of your value instantly. Here's a truth you need to internalize. Women don't crave men who are impressed by them. They crave men who impress them without trying. And nothing is more impressive than a man who is indifferent to approval and attuned to truth. When you speak from a place of inner clarity, not performance. When you listen, you're not waiting for your turn to impress. You're observing, feeling, reading between the lines. That kind of masculine attunement is rare, and that's exactly why it's powerful. It makes her drop the act. It makes her soften. It makes her lean in. And once she leans in, you don't need to chase. You guide, you invite, you challenge. And if she's not aligned with your path, you let go with zero resentment. Because a man who respects himself doesn't force attraction. He creates it, or he walks away. That's why when you stop doing the things rooted in need, you don't just change how she sees you, you change how you see yourself. And once that happens, her reaction is just a mirror, a reflection of the masculine presence you've built. And that's something she can't ignore. So now you know. You know why she doesn't see you the way you want her to. You know what you've been doing that silently communicates need instead of value. You've seen the patterns: texting too much, proving too hard, giving too soon. And you've learned how every one of those behaviors sends the same message. I need you to complete me. But the moment you stop, the moment you detach, hold your frame, and show up from a place of grounded masculine presence, something shifts. She starts watching you more closely. She starts wondering what changed. She starts feeling the difference, even if she can't explain it. And that's the magic. Because when she feels it, you don't have to say anything. You become the man who doesn't ask to be seen. He makes her look. But don't just watch this video and go back to the same habits. Use this moment to make a decision. To stop acting like a man trying to win approval and start living like a man who is the standard. Now listen, if this message hit you, if something inside you woke up as you listened, I want you to do one thing for me. Leave a comment below. Tell me what you are going to stop doing. Tell me what mindset you're stepping into starting today. I read every one of them, and your comment might be exactly what another man out there needs to hear to wake up too. If you got value from this video, share it with a brother, with someone who needs to remember who he is. The more men we wake up, the stronger we all become. And don't forget to subscribe if you want more raw, real, and relentless truth about how to master yourself and magnetize the kind of women who respect that mastery. This isn't just about seduction. This is about becoming the kind of man she never forgets. Because you finally stopped forgetting who you are. I'll see you in the next one. Stay sharp, stay grounded, stay unfuckwithable.